Hello everybody, Poncianinho speaking here, starting another vlog. Today I'd like to talk about timing and tempo when you practice. I taught a class this Monday and I worked a lot with this. And do you know, sometimes if there's any teachers listening to this, you probably know, you know when something really works. You can feel. Sometimes you can get from the expressions of the student's face, but even more you can just feel, even if you're not looking at their faces, but you can tell by the way they're training that practice is being really appreciated. And this one was one of them, that after I even got a lot of feedback from people saying that they felt that they even got an immediate result from that. So what it was is that there was a time in a class where they had to do a sequence. So I taught them the sequence, I broke down the steps, and then they had to continue doing the sequence by themselves. So they now had the time to put their own, to give their input into the sequence, and to take the sequence and make it a little bit more personal to them. So the idea of the repetition of the sequence was very important, but not repeating together with everybody else. So they had a spot where they could just work the sequence over and over and over and over. So I think that for that, a combination of 2, 3, 4, 5 movements can be really good, because then they have to think about the mapping of each movement. But I want to talk about the tempo, which is what was really helpful. I started with a simple, in the beginning of the class, I started with a kick, which was like chapa de frente, and I told everybody that they are going to do by music. So I was not going to count 1, 2, 3, 10 each leg. So I put the music and they just had to follow more or less the tempo of the music, okay? And not think of numbers. Now that could generate, that could mean that they will do more on one side than another if they are speeding up. So then I told them that it's really important that even though they're not counting, that they develop a sense of rhythm, and that they develop an idea of the tempo that they are doing. So even if they do maybe a couple more on one side when the track finish, then to the other side, they are then taking an opportunity to start to master this self-control of tempo in their body. So then I could see that they were really trying to keep and make mental notes of what is this tempo here, because now you don't have the numbers to help you go 1, 2, 3. So then it becomes more musical straight away. Now that was really valid, but then even more than that, that was like a warm-up for what was to come later. So then late in the class, I developed this sequence. I taught them the sequence, and then they had free time, okay, to freestyle. So they would have to do the sequence still, but then the idea of tempo was stronger in their mind. So I said to them, before you change the tempo, I want you to remember on both sides. Now, that was very good, because it starts to give them an idea of also how to manipulate the time and how to change. And then that starts to work with texture. But I want to make a hook from that. So I want to say that first, it's really important that you develop that sense of rhythm and tempo. You will feel straight away that something empowering about that in your practice, and it again gives you motivation. During practice you feel motivated, because that's something that you are doing. You're not just following the teacher. That's something that that's kind of what we say is a good leadership in class. Because good leadership, of course, there are times where everybody has to move together. There's another purpose behind that as well. And moving together can lift up the energy of the class, very much so. But there are times where the student wants to move by themselves in their spot and not have to follow the teacher or the person next to them. The reason why that's good leadership is because that kind of leadership, it gives you the, what we say in Portuguese, autonomia. You become the master at that time. You have to become the master of your movements at that time, okay? I often say leadership cannot be imposed. You have to be shown and guided. And then the students are quite happy to be led, because they've been led by an idea that they have to work with, but they're not always just having to lead a command of 1, 2, and 3, and 4. Again, remembering that there's nothing wrong with that, and sometimes, most of the times in my class, they just have to follow the numbers, the counting, or I'm literally saying right, left, up and down. These are all commands because they are also training the movements, and they want you to have basic commands. But then later you want to start to use your creative mind. We spoke about that a little bit on another vlog. But let's take a hook to talk about something that perhaps even that goes even deeper into this. The idea of tempo and speed can really give character to the movement, and it can come from different things. Well, it can come from the music, whatever song I'm playing in the class. Maybe that song sometimes could be a background for you to just train, but sometimes you're moving to, most of the time, you're moving to that song. So obviously it depends of, I'm mainly talking to the people that practice with me, of course, but I hope that this helps whoever is watching and give you an insight of that. But it is also obviously for those who are practicing with me to understand what goes on in my mind when I'm teaching. I think if you understand that, the more you understand that, the better you practice, and hence the point of the vlog. So the tempo, it's set by a few things. I may set a tempo because I want a certain texture in the movement. So yesterday, for example, I wanted a sharp jump into a bananeira to close the knees into the chest, and then slow fall into a resistência. So I'm working with contrast, okay? Obviously, that sharp jump into bananeira would be good for a defense of a cabeçada, for example. So the tempo is now being dictated by what I've got in my mind in terms of how you would use that. But the tempo could be dictated by the song that is being playing, and if it's dictated by music, whatever music you play more in your school, I obviously play a lot of capoeira music that I think is good in my school, different masters and so on. But there is sometimes a common ground for all the music that I play as well. And you then find that tempo that is being set in the classes could be to do with the lineage of it. So if you're bringing tempo, music will definitely show the lineage, okay? That tempo could have a contrast, as I explained with the movement as well. So I could have a song that is make me move me a certain way, but then because I'm thinking about the defense of a cabeçada, that has to change as well. But now the students understand, now hopefully you'll understand that you have set a tempo, but you are having to shift that tempo because something has happened in the game. And I think that's really important to use as a practice as well, okay? So basically is giving detail in why you're using that certain speed and tempo. I cannot always give all the details in a class, so the students have to just take my word for it that there is a plan behind why this is sharp, why this is soft, why this is slower than another movement, and then why we can just shift everything. Something that was slow now has to be fast. I find that some movements that most of the time they ask, the movements themselves ask to be done in a certain way, okay? And that's to do with preference of the textures as well. So some movements, they fall more into that pattern. Again, all of this can be changed according to what could happen in the game. But then if you can maintain that for a while, what starts to happen, you start to develop a language of movement that the students really appreciate learning, because they can feel that in the body. And what is more important for us as capoeiristas than to understand the melody of our movements? You find that, generally speaking, of course this is a generalization, but generally speaking, just like in music, what happens to the body is when you have more time, when the melody is slower, you can do more flourishing. And when it's faster, the movements tend to be sharper. because you have less time. So if I have a song that goes, ooh, la 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 la, something like this, I can really play with those notes. I literally have more time to do that. And when it's faster, there's just no time. There's different textures as well, but they're delivered faster. Now that happens to the body as well. So sometimes I want to understand that I'm using a slower form of moving because I want to add that melody, and a fast movement will not allow me to understand that melody. That's why I think that sometimes speed can play a very important role in mastering a certain way of moving. Okay? Saying that, is also important to know when you need to be sharper. When do you need to be sharper? Sometimes it's not about the melody. If I need to escape from a kick that is coming really fast, you just have to get on with the escape and be sharp. But there's something else, I think, with this, that even when you master even when you need to move faster, but you have first mastered to move slower, and you have a lot of melody and beauty and that quality of crying like in a movement. Remember what Mestre Pastinha said, capoeira tem negativa. Negativa would be to negate the movement. So even when you have that, and you need to move faster, although it will be sharper, but you will carry in that sharp movement some of the quality that you have developed in a slower, more melodic movement. So perhaps what I'm trying to say is that a lot of times it's very important to move slower, to add melody, and then you can speed that process up. Okay? So thank you very much for watching. Hope you enjoyed that. I have to keep my vlogs short for now because I'm not allowed to upload from my camera more than 15 minutes. So I always try to just put shorter videos like this, okay? I do feel that most of the subjects that I talk about, I could go on for longer. And go for longer in the sense that I'm bringing more examples and perhaps even demonstrating some things moving, okay? But we'll get to that at some point. All right, guys, thank you very much, and I appreciate very much your patience. Hopefully, as we go along, this will get better. All right, obrigado. Tchau, tchau.